Okay, 6 o'clock. Call the meeting to order. Great. This is the first meeting of the Public Works Board, 6 p.m. on April 18th. Present are myself, Michael Hoffman, Gary Pernhagen, David Marston, George Cronert, and Jason Foster. Perhaps we take a minute to just do brief introductions. I can start. I am the Mayor's Aide and ADA Coordinator for the City of Hudson for approximately 10 more days. My last day is next Friday, April 26th. I'll be starting a new position on May 1st. But because of that, definitely wanted to make sure that we started this up because I have been pretty deeply involved in the legislation that created this board, and as ADA coordinator, obviously have some experience with our sidewalk situation. Gary
Pernhagen. I am the council member for the first ward as of January of this year. I've been a resident of the first ward for 12, 13 years. Yeah. Pleasure to be a part of this.
George.
My name is George Cronert. I'm a resident in Hudson. I live over at 236 State Street and got interested in giving back a little bit to Hudson. The sidewalks are kind of a nice way to start that process. I spent 30 years working for New York City Parks, and my wife and I came up here to retire, or I retired. She's still working.
Jason Foster, I'm the Commissioner of Public Works. I have a degree in mechanical engineering. I was a contractor for many years. I live on Green Street, and yeah, so I work with Rob a lot, and I'm here, want to be here, but also by decree.
David Marston. I live in the first ward, between Front and First. I was an alderman way back when. I'm super excited to get involved again. I run a lot, so I feel like I know the sidewalks a little bit, so I'm hoping to bring some of that to bear. Yeah.
Great. Okay. First business for this board, since the Common Council did not do this yet, we should appoint a chair for this board. I'm requesting that it is not me, since I will not be here after this meeting. Are there any volunteers to be its chair?
What are the duties?
The duties are effectively just to run the meeting. So what I'm doing now, I created the agenda and call the meeting and go through each item and ask for firsts and seconds and such.
What are the anticipated meeting times throughout the year?
That's something that we should discuss in this meeting. It's not, I can't remember if it's dictated in the law, but I think the frequency is up to us. I imagine that we will want to meet. We would want to meet probably monthly in the beginning, until things start rolling, and then perhaps quarterly.
There may be some duties to report to the council as
Right.
well.
Mhm.
I would think I would be the chair.
Yeah.
Suppose anyone could do it, but.
Unless George is interested in doing it, I'll take it.
Okay. Then I'll nominate Gary Pernhagen to be chair of the Public Works Board. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Great. All in favor? Great. So Gary, now it is your meeting.
That's simple. Okay, so we are moving into regular business. And so I don't know what are beyond what I'm seeing here. We're talking about hiring the project manager for the budget. So is this an issue that we need to come up with?
yes, yes and no. So the Public Works Board is responsible for making a recommendation to the Common Council for an annual budget for the Sidewalk Improvement District program. The council has preliminarily established a $500,000 loan from the general fund to the Sidewalk Improvement District Fund for this first year. So that's how much we have to work with for 2024 at the moment. That is, of course, not taking into account how billing is going to proceed.
Yeah, I have a
Because-
little different information
Yeah.
from Heather. So it would be very,
Sorry, Heather is,
Heather is the treasurer of the city, Heather Campbell.
thank you.
It's gonna be very challenging, probably impossible for us to make hay, in time to get the tax bills out with the fees for this sidewalk district for 2025. Could give some dates, but May would be a preliminary and then reviewed in June and then out. But, so there's a lot to do, including even hiring a person to work on this. So in her opinion, the 500,000 needs to be stretched out.
Hmm.
And I think also we may have trouble spending that much money that fast. So I don't think that may not be a problem. If we had the, the gumption to spend 250,000 this year and dig in next year, we could then, would be at least getting her closer to 2026. And also, we could then go possibly to the Common Council to amend the budget. But I think 2024 budget of 500,000 may be too much per him.
Per Heather.
Yeah,
But it also, to me, it sounded reasonable because we're gonna be halfway through the year before we even get cranking on this.
Right.
The fiscal year starts in July, is that?
we're January, December.
you're
Yeah, we're a
January.
calendar year, fiscal year.
But in any case, we will not see any reimbursements, funds coming in.
Well, as it said, it's a loan from the general fund, so we can spend money. But yes, money coming in from tax rolls probably won't come until 26. Unless we found. So. Can I shift to what I've just done a lot of digging in. And, the law is complicated. The law makes our lives a little complicated because we have to, break down the bills. It's about, just roughly, say $200 for a residential property. Commercial property, you need to do $200 plus the square footage plus the linear footage of sidewalk. So there's some calculations to do. There's some also accepted properties that don't pay anything. So Michael started a list already of what those are. They probably need to be checked just for thoroughness. And then the commercial needs to be broken out. If we were just billing the residential 200 apiece and the accepted list was already started, we could get really aggressive and go for it even before we hired somebody. But I think on the basis of the extra work we need to do calculating, measuring for commercial spaces, then we won't get there.
Is the exempted list in addition to the one that was in the law?
That is the same list.
Same.
Specific.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Mostly
It was
city
attached.
properties.
You're right, I forgot it was attached.
Yeah. City
HOA
properties, the
is-
school,
Yeah.
yeah, parts of the city that are not along a public right of way.
Okay.
I'm thinking maybe, I don't know how much you did with sliver lots and other little
Right.
technical things like that, but, so that's why I don't. I attempted to say, well, let's just get all the residential out there this year, but I don't think it works that way.
And those exempted city properties, we can still put those on our list for ones to accomplish if they're not meeting ADA or, right?
Right, yeah, that doesn't mean that we can't work on their
Right,
sidewalks.
we just don't
Yeah.
include it in our,
They're just
the
not
way that we're building and all that. Okay,
Right.
okay.
That makes sense, Gary? Does everyone kind of feel that? like, cause we're gonna, so you also sent out, speaking of budgets, biggest part of our budget is project manager.
Mhm.
Sent out an example of Ithaca's hiring, their budget for that position was $55,000 to $75,000. I wasn't clear if they'd hired the person yet, but, because it was a fairly recent listing. So that's money, I believe, comes out of our budget.
Yeah.
Um,
And the PM is really like, has the relationship with the contractor, with DPW, is sort of logistically getting everything in order.
Yeah, and participates in
even the
doing
list.
that.
I mean, probably everything, like even doing the list of billings and the measuring of properties and.
Right,
We could dive into that and get it a
Yeah.
head start. That's
Yeah.
something I think we could do, but
and are we under any sort of decree from that ADA?
That's partially why we need to get started this year,
Okay.
is that the Department of Justice is very interested in seeing work happen under this program.
Does Perry manage a reconstruction of sidewalks? I saw guys working out on doing some things here and there, and I'm wondering, is there a capital budget allotted?
well, so what DPW does as a matter of course is anywhere they pave, they put in the ramps. So they either maintain or add ADA ramps. So I think we just did well over 20 between Washington and Columbia, and then a few over at Green and Fairview. So there isn't a set aside budget to do sidewalks beyond that. I think it does come up every now and then, but, in 2019, Rob sent me a page where they hired a company that's, their name is like, We Fix Sidewalks. But if you look around 7th Street Park, always safe sidewalks. They did, for $20,000, they ground and patched and so, so it gives us some sense of what it costs to do. If we went dug into this, we could get, however many feet was a conscious thing us and how much we think it would take to do the rest.
Does the city record their costs? Do they repair sidewalks and keep records of what their costs are?
No, I wouldn't say so. If they do any, I'd say it's just a labor and, I mean, there's a lot of subcontracted stuff, but as I said, most of it's in relation to other paving projects. There hasn't been, and I think that's the issue, there hasn't been specific sidewalk project. Even this work that National Grid is doing is improving our sidewalks in the end.
Although complicating things for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's pluses and minuses. But does anyone not envision it in the same way? Like, you've probably all seen, you mentioned working in parks, like grinding.
Yeah, I'm wondering, it's like, there's kind of a dual system of, you can either have kind of a requirement style contractor that's on call that you go, oh, hey, I need you to head over to wherever and do this piece of work, and you assign a cost. You have a guy, put out a contract and just bid on general items, and then you bill out those items as need. And you assign a budget, or you just find, the sidewalks are nice, or sidewalks are less dry.
Yeah,
And what's your per square foot cost and that kind of thing. It seems that these costs vary wild in the city. I talk to people and they're like, why is it this and that? And I'm like, I really don't have a good handle yet on what is the true cost of a flat of concrete and finish and these kind of things.
there's a general accepted rule of ballpark, if you replace sidewalks of $15 a square foot. But I don't think anyone's picturing us replacing sidewalks unless needed. If I'm correct or wrong, but I think it's more this type of. They had a special one, it's a horizontal saw more than a grinder, so it goes a little bit faster, and that's one thing that Rob liked about them. Where the trees have pushed things up, sometimes you need to fully remove it. If you get down to 2 inches. Excuse me, of cutting, they consider that too much.
Yeah.
They stop at that point and replace the contract.
So,
Go ahead.
what we're attempting to do here is to look at this as initially one large project. And, or are we looking to quote out parcels based on priority?
Are you guys familiar with this map?
Yeah, I am, but
Yeah, so this is the DOJ, I'll call it the DOJ ADA map.
From the reports.
Yeah. So it's basically Warren Street, third to the youth center, out to the library, to the police station. I would suggest we bid this as a whole. And see where we go. And then if we need to spread it out, let's say this comes in at 400,000, we need to spread it out over 2 years. We just work with the contractor, we can get it.
Mhm.
But this could be in our 250. There's a very good report, Hyman Hayes, is that their name?
Mhm.
It's very thorough. I didn't bring it because it's too many pages, but I can send it around.
Yeah, it's huge, just on the website,
Yeah.
yeah.
But they went around with this little tool that,
Right, yes, yes.
I
said, I gotta get one of those.
yeah,
I have one if you wanna.
I think you could make one. I think that's where we start.
Do we,
It might, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, do we as, I know that the SID works as you create districts, would we need to like say that scope of work is our first district, and then as we piecemeal out or create a hierarchy of what we feel like needs first attention, and that becomes part of the SID, or do we just create a SID that's the full overlay of our city?
I think that's already been done.
Yeah,
That's already-
the way that the laws are, in the whole city is the district.
Brilliant, so we don't have to worry about,
Right,
it's more about how we phase
yeah,
achieving.
yeah, and
accomplishment.
prioritize.
Okay, that makes sense.
So we could start from the Hyman Hayes report,
Mhm.
basically bid that out.
Do we have to adhere to all the state bid?
Yeah, yeah, we would follow, since it would be a large contract, we would wanna follow the procurement. Policies, we,
No, I'm curious, because I think you're right to say that we scale something larger. And rather than like, okay, we've got 12 parcels, we wanna put it out to bid, we have to go through that whole process, that would be time consuming, I'd imagine.
yeah,
Yeah.
the whole idea behind doing this way was to achieve economy of scale.
Yeah,
Because in the past, you would have to require every individual property owner to go out and find someone to do the work, and that becomes extremely expensive because you're having contractors do tiny little projects and it takes so much just to mobilize. So yes, I will add that we did get initial estimates from through our grant writers for the portion of this project that is not being addressed by the DRI,
Sure.
which is the Front Street section and then the first 2 blocks of Warren Street. So basically everything east of Second Street. And the estimate that we got for all of that work, and admittedly, this was probably for replacement of everything, was in the 4 to 5 million realm, which is why we did not move forward with that and came up with the idea of doing this prudent district program to be able to like equitize that cost and plan it out. So we have applied to the New York State Department of Transportation for funding for that entire project. Whether or not we get that money is to be determined. We applied in early January, so perhaps we'll hear back soon. It was the TPDC program, which I'm blanking on what that stands for, but it is a program for improving roadways and sidewalks and stuff like this. And Ithaca has received support for their sidewalk improvement district program from this grant program. So it's possible that we could end up having enough money to do all of that at once, but I just want to caution that it may we may not be able to do it, all of this for $250,000.
No.
Yeah.
But
And so we may find a contractor who can't do it all in 1 year anyway,
Sure.
which then works to our advantage.
Mhm.
yeah, maybe once the money starts rolling in, we can tackle it differently, but
And given the complexities with National Grid's work on Warren Street, it actually may be beneficial to focus on the off Warren sections first.
Mhm.
well, yeah, I don't know that we break them off, we bid the whole thing.
Right.
But I mean, we could have bid the whole city. But I don't know, it just feels like a bit crazy.
Is the city currently under litigation from DOJ?
It's under a consent order.
So DOJ issued a consent order.
Yeah.
Okay. When was that issued?
2019. And then that expired in 23 and we got a 1-year extension or a 2-year. Okay.
So that was part of the reason we drafted this local law,
Right, yeah.
drafted to start to pursue that.
Yeah, it was a way for us to be able to show that we cared and we're making progress without committing an enormous amount of funding to that would have a much higher impact on the community than if we were to if, like, for example, if we were to bid the whole project out to complete it by their deadline, it would have cost the city a ton of money in terms of debt service.
What was the issue? Who prompted the suit? Is this something?
There were-
This is a 3-year story.
Yeah, I mean, my understanding is that there were several lawsuits brought against the city involving trips and falls that cued the DOJ to investigate.
Gotcha.
There was a council member who talked to an attorney who's good friends with the woman from DOJ, and that's how it proceeded.
Sounds for certain. Gotcha. Okay.
Does that consent have any, do they have any visibility on where we start? They just want to see that we've started.
Well, the consent order actually names exactly this
Okay.
map as what needs to be done by the city because it involves access to our essential services.
Right.
The library, city hall, police department, fire department, post office.
So they really prioritized phase 1.
They effectively have given us our phase 1. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That helps.
Yeah.
And did we,
Is it though just phase 1 or is our scope to become ADA compliant and take care of this issue before us?
yes, I think so.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why it's
The whole city?
Ultimately,
My understanding is that if we take care of this area here, we're compliant.
Right,
with-
but that's, I'm saying the law that was
Right.
written by
As-
common council aimed at the whole city.
yeah, I understand what you're saying. If for the consent order, we do this, we're good. By the law, for the sidewalk improvement district program, it is intended to extend beyond that and continue to improve all sidewalks across the city.
Including probably adding some,
Right,
I'm sorry?
probably adding some as well.
Yeah.
We don't have, there's places you know that they're missing.
Right.
But do we do anything with this and getting this bid, or do we concentrate on getting our project manager and then they dive into this?
Well, it'd be ideal to have the project manager here now to begin doing all of this, right? But we can't absolve, I can't absolve myself, he has to report to us. And, we have to, I think, agree with his findings, right?
Well, I think you bring up a point when you said he reports, that they report to us.
Well, no, they actually report to them. I've been a project
That's
manager
what
and
I
I've
asked.
reported to both the
How do
common
we-
council and the mayor.
Yeah.
So, that's the way it probably should be done.
The employee of the mayor's office,
Yeah.
I would think, hired by the mayor's office, just clarifying.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Not gonna be,
Right.
not gonna be an employee of the common council.
no,
Right.
I don't think they're gonna be an employee of DPW.
Yeah,
So, I mean, and as far as the hiring. I don't think we have we don't even know how to hire someone, like, what you sent me from Ithaca is like, I don't think the city even does all the stuff that they do,
Well,
but,
yeah, so that's a good question there's a branch that we could go here, is that we can hire an employee of the city. They would have a civil service title and a job description with civil service, and they would have to take a test and then go through the city's employment practices in order to be hired. That whether or not that position is unionized would also be a question. I
okay,
imagine it would. Then the other option is instead to do an RFP for a consulting group to serve as project manager, which would not require the whole civil service section, and say that it's an annual 2 years, 3 years contract to manage this project. It's not how Ithaca does it, but
Yeah.
that could be an option.
You try a cost plus approach where you bring in a construction manager and you elaborate what your budget is. And here's the specifications that we require.
Mhm.
And it's, you keep whatever you manage to build within spec. You still need some kind of resident engineer to supervise, but
Mhm.
if you're trying to avoid the civil service,
it might be faster to get a consultant.
I mean, once they're done, then you say, have a nice day, and the city's not obligated for any pension or benefits or future employment for that matter. I don't know, it's a toss up.
That's a good question for you that had a conversation with the mayor about, was whether if we did hire someone, this isn't maybe quite a full-time position, could they be the ADA coordinator?
Yeah, I think that would actually be
that's
a
brilliant.
huge benefit to separate the ADA coordinator from the mayor's ADA position and put it onto
For sure.
the project manager, because it's all one-stop shop for sidewalks, basically, because that's the main thing that the ADA coordinator deals with.
But it's not, I mean, it's a lot, but it's not
Yeah.
full-time. The
Right.
ADA coordinator.
Yeah.
Quarter your time?
Well,
Like-
it's turned into less because I've had so many other things on my, but yes, feasibly, yeah, that is part of my position. Right, right.
Question, before we lose you to Bard, did the city survey, did they run a survey to land all those ADA compliant ramps throughout town? How do they determine this? Is there a baseline survey in Hudson?
We have to do it every time we pave,
Yeah,
anything adjacent to Newark, that much I know. The old ones, some have been here a while.
Yeah, notice, okay, so that leads me to a question. Does Rob maintain any kind of survey that's accessible to the property owners in Hudson? So that they can, instead of having to, engage in a survey, or I need to get my stoop, because, one of the issue in this town is the streets have been paved over and over, and so now a lot of sidewalks in people's properties are lower than the streets.
Mhm.
And so that leads me to my next question. I'm throwing a lot of stuff out at you guys. Is there a comprehensive map of what DPW plans to pave or work effort, so that people can plan, like, oh, you're gonna be doing the streets, so maybe I'll wait to do my sidewalks until you do your streets. I know what the grades are gonna be there.
No, he
No.
does plan a bit ahead, like he
Right.
knew he was doing Columbia and Washington Street.
Right.
I'm sure last year, I don't know if he did it 2 years ago, but as far as the ramps, as we do this section on the map, we'd have to make sure all the ramps are in compliance at the same time. Not only are we getting rid of trip hazards and gaps, but all the ramps need to be up to snuff.
How were the ramps established to begin with?
There's specs, there's
No, but I mean, as far as the elevations, where are there legal grades in the city of Hudson?
I mean, most of the time they grind first. I mean, I don't know how much the elevations change, and it's been on many, many years, but like when they did Columbia Street, they grind it first.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm just trying to get a handle, wrap my head around, how did we build these ramps?
Mhm.
How do we decide this is what our grades are? And I know you've got site conditions and you go, okay, here's my sidewalk and here's my street, but it's kind of an issue that I can see that's looming there.
Mhm.
Is, you know, and it kind of goes back to some of your street construction details, like those can have a big impact on how your curves look, what your sidewalks are gonna have to be. But you're talking, okay, so I digress. I'll let this meeting get back to.
And I think they work to the conditions that it is at the moment. That's why they're doing it as they pave, so they pave and then.
Because I mean, I guess where I'm going with this question is if you say you've got a block and in each end of the block, you've got a ramp, you know, does that mean that I am just going from top of ramp to top of ramp along that grade sidewalk? Because this town's got a little weird characteristic of, you know, people build, they race up and then they level out for their 35 feet and then they, you know, go back down because the neighbor doesn't want to fix their sidewalks or whatever. Long story short, that's a lot of grade changes that occur along these city streets. And so if you're saying to yourself, yeah, these ramps those are what our driving legal grades are gonna be, then I'm like, okay, I'm all in. That's
Pretty much, well, that's a good insight and we'll take it into account as we move forward, huh?
Yeah.
Still, getting back to this agenda, it sounds like there's some options around the hiring of the project manager. Is it best for you to begin with a conversation or come back with some ideas?
I mean, I think what we would want to hear from everyone else here is which path would you want to take? Do you want to go the employee route that then also becomes the ADA coordinator, or go for a firm that manages?
Well, I guess they really are, you know, we're talking about phase one, but then there's the additional phase for the entire city, given the law. So there will be something needed ongoing, but that will look very different than the first phase
Probably.
and the second phase.
Mhm.
To bring on, realistically, how long would it take for us to bring on an employee, going through all of the questions of, and let's think in terms of just replacing you, which
Mhm.
should be the easiest. And then giving them.
No offense. No offense.
It's a little bit
In
easier,
terms
yeah.
of an existing
Yeah.
position,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
all of the issues, whether unionized, have been dealt
Yeah.
with, so I'm not. You're unreplaceable, you know.
You're the only one with experience. I think you're right. Like we've never hired anyone.
Yeah. Yeah,
Well, hiring is one thing, I mean, you know, I.
Find it.
That too, I mean, you know, there's ways of doing that, and I have experience around that, but not with doing it through the city, and we want to know what's the best way.
Yeah.
Maybe the best way is to, in finding your replacement, having this as part of it, although there's a whole bunch of different skill sets associated with that.
I would say that it would probably at the fastest take around 2 months, maybe 3 months. And that would be if civil service allowed us to hire provisionally. So that basically means that we would hire someone before they took a civil service exam, on the condition that they then test. And if they test, then they remain in the position. If they test poorly, then we have to find someone else.
My gut saying it's so much easier to use a firm.
And that's specializing in what we need to get done.
What if So we have a number of firms that we work with on a regular basis. If we start with some conversations. Creighton Manning,
Hyman Hayes,
yeah,
yeah.
Crawford, I don't know, just ask, is that a way to start? Cause I mean, ultimately, we've worked a lot with firms, but have we ever like had a dedicated person? Has that ever been, cause that's what we're talking about, so have you ever done that?
For certain things, yes, like for, yeah, DRI, we have dedicated staff for our grant writing contract. We have particular managers of what we do.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's out of the ordinary. I just don't know if this is a very unique program for New York, at least. So finding it, it'll be interesting to see what the response is.
I feel like if we had maybe a better sense, we took a little bit of time to grapple with the scope of the project that we're thinking of bidding out. Like, are we just saying what we're under decree with, that's the project, then we price that, whether we do it whichever direction we take? Or do we say we're looking at a 4-year, 4-phase project? You know what I mean? Like get a sense of like, what are we really asking for? I don't even think we even know yet, do we?
I've had people say that it's gonna be a decade before we're done.
Yeah, I mean, that's because on what, year 5, I think,
Are they?
and they've made significant progress, but yeah, I feel like the scale. And then I think that might inform, like, does it make sense to bring someone in house who can coordinate and work with Rob and have those relationships in the city rather than spend the money on a consultant for phase 1, they come in, they manage, they're gone. There's no continuity of management in the long term. I mean, I agree. I think there's a lot to consider around the real cost of a new position, but I also worry about consultant fatigue, and I feel like the city has suffered from that at different times. I guess all I'm saying is I think we need to say, what is the project that we're bidding? Is it just ADA? Is it our whole mandate? And then say, okay, we can go to Creighton Manning and say, hey, we need someone that would do this, right? X, we see this scope of work. You come to completion, that's the end of the project, that contract's done or not, I don't know.
And then do a search and hire for the full-time position while
Yeah,
that is happening.
I mean, I do feel the urgency to get going because of the way that the billing works, but at the same time, I want to make sure that we're strategic in how we approach the PM role, because it's gonna be a big chunk of the budget in the long term.
Alternative that's just coming to mind is if we get to a point where we really need to make progress or show something. We do this, we pick a smaller scope
Right,
and we keep it. We do, there's a $35,000 limit that some people talk about, or $50,000 or whatever. If we get to in a pinch, we could do something like that. And
right,
just-
we do Front Street
We hire it ourselves.
for one of the
Street's
most.
a bad
high
example, because that's
traffic-
DRI, but we do
Right,
some portion of Warren, we do
Right.
from. 7th to 4th or something like that.
yeah,
But that could be a backup plan. I hear what you're saying, I was talking more out of fear.
Yeah, no.
Not being able to find someone.
totally.
I feel it's not so much about finding that someone, which I agree with you, is really finding those people that can do the work. And maybe we approach, I'm just thinking out loud here that you take that, trying to solve that consent decree and use that as a methodology to try to grow your construction community. And I know that sounds pretty esoteric, but maybe it means you launch out to the community college. They've got a building trades program, and maybe you try to bring in some of the other contractors that are around, and you use that as like this, we're gonna accomplish this big piece, but let's try to cultivate some for the rest of the city. You know, and try to get some people some livelihoods, maybe. I don't know. That's,
I think if we bid a project, we'll get bids. Well, if we did this much and we put it out there,
yeah. Does the city use like Dodge reports or anything like that? How do they advertise their
when,
construction
I
contracts?
think this is what Rob does, and I think Rob's good at it. I haven't been I started my role this year, so
Gotcha.
in 2024, but
Is Rob a part of this committee or this group?
no.
Not by definition, but
Not on it.
I think we could invite him.
I'd love to pick his brain just to, you know.
you guys.
Well, I can tell you,
To your point,
Just say,
you're right,
let
we
him
should
do
be
it.
reaching out to the existing players and Rob can help us with that, but I think your point is a larger one, which is what is the scope? Are we just going to focus on, phase one? Or do we want to look at it in a much larger sense? There could be even further, economy of efficiencies, by looking at the entire city versus, what. On the other hand,
I think this is much more manageable.
this
What-
being,
Yes, if we're talking the whole city, we're starting to talk about, okay, where needs new sidewalks, where needs, and we needed some time to get the ball rolling with what's coming in. Like I think maybe Michael's done a little bit with what he thinks the tax will bring in annually. But I don't know right now. I have no idea what the tax is gonna bring in, maybe Tom knows, but, so I don't think we even know what we're working with yet.
Well,
We have to do.
Well, maybe we use that as our template to
We'll get
understand,
rolling.
like, get the calculation saying like, okay, if we were assessing what the law has put out relative to what the map has drawn our attention to, those parcels, we can get a number in our head at
Well,
least.
the tax is for everyone. We may only spend it here, but we're gonna tax everyone every year. It's not
Assess.
assessed.
Right,
It's not a tax, but yeah.
Okay.
right.
I'm not.
You gotta be very careful about that. It is
Okay,
not a
I'm not a
tax.
politician, I don't
Yeah.
get
Yeah,
recorded,
yeah.
but it's not just these parcels.
Right.
That are paying.
But I think in terms of, I think I don't know, I guess I'm still stuck on like, we don't have any data even where we don't, and I think to your point around coordination, like in terms of Rob and just getting all these gears and I don't know.
I think with the way it's laid out, other than helping with the way we write bids or put it out for RFIs,
Mhm.
I don't think I think part of what this is doing is taking the load off.
Yeah, right,
Instead of.
right, yeah.
And I think we can, if we start digging in, Michael's giving me enough of a start, we can estimate what we think we're gonna get annually.
Mhm.
We just have to start doing that.
But now I'm sorry to jump in here, but you're saying Heather Campbell, the city treasurer, says, hey, we're gonna have to borrow for this.
Well, it's already been done,
Sorry.
right? They've already approved 500,000 from the general fund.
Okay.
That was
Should-
based on my very preliminary estimations that's roughly how much the assessments would bring in annually.
Right,
Gotcha.
so that's good to know. But she was just saying, based on us, that was first assumption, we get 2025 tax assessments. And now if it's 2026, we need to just go a little slower. But am I hearing that we're gonna try to hire someone? I think that's our real decision, is not to get rolling. And then we can dig in on some of these other things.
looking to me for an answer I don't have, we don't have, well, again, I think we have to get back to, first off, I'm sorry, are we in agreement that we should just focus, our scope right now is phase one?
Yeah.
Which gives us, it's a good exploration, right, to understand everything else.
Yeah,
We need to at least address that issue. I hate to ask this, but does the law have some sort of time frame associated with everything else?
That's a great question. I don't
I
think-
don't think it does.
sorry.
The law does not define a time period. that we have to
No, it does not.
accomplish this.
then,
Because
I'm
that's a
already
good
queasy about assessments and everything else, given the timeframes. I have to wrap my head further around that issue, but it sounds to me like we should just look at at what the DOJ has identified.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone agree with it, Dave?
And you said DRI is addressing.
DRI is addressing Front Street.
Yep.
And
Both
then
sides.
from Front to Second on Warren.
But no, it might even do some of the, depends with the reduction of scope. Originally, it was handling some other streets, but
Right, the Union and Allen Street parts have been taken out in the most recent bid, as well as the State Street.
So who are we putting that bid out to?
That bid has already been out and we'll get responses on Monday, actually, is the due date, so we'll actually, I think, have some good numbers as a result of that bid
oh,
to help inform
Yeah.
this estimate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and it sounds like these would be the players we would be reaching out to.
Yeah. In terms of the actual construction, yeah.
And does that, for our process, each scope of work is its own separate bid process, essentially?
like maybe next.
We could
week, use another
combine.
scope. Right, this is our scope now,
Mhm.
then in a year from now, we're talking about another
And
scope.
I think you got the DR, can we combine the DR, the streets covered by DRI along with everything above on Warren Street?
We don't have to do anything with DRI, that's gonna be done.
Yeah, that'll
It's
be,
being taken care of.
Yeah,
Somebody else is taking care of it?
It's gonna be more putting bids.
I
I understand, but we're putting those bid out.
No,
That's
Okay.
already done.
Okay,
yeah,
I understand.
yeah. And we kind of need to keep the projects separate for the purpose of the DRI grant.
Okay.
If we get good at this, maybe then it's the rest of the city or.
Yeah.
But
Is there
Okay.
a location where people can find out the status of the DRI grants?
That has been a matter of discussion recently with the council. So, yeah, it's,
the city ones or all
Just all of them in general, yeah.
yeah, so what we have to do better in terms of putting that information out publicly. There was a recent status report that I submitted to the Department of State yesterday that will, I think, eventually go out online in some form. Right now, the city website is not really updated to the current status of DRI.
I'm calling Bart tomorrow and tell him, you can't come.
Michael, on item C here on our agenda, determination of the 25 SID assessments.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
Well, that is just there because it is a thing that the board/project manager will have to do. That is not something that we can really determine in this meeting.
I think we could dive into it, Gary, if we wanted to. Or we can wait for the project manager. I started gathering enough to get a sense of how it would happen, but. So if you want to talk about it later, about how that would happen,
Mm-hmm.
I have enough to know how it would happen. It's just this nitty gritty work to do it.
Okay. And then sidewalk inventory review and project area prioritization.
It's effectively the discussion that we've been having.
And I have the Hyman Hayes report, Michael, I think we should just add it to that list of documents.
Yeah, it is on, it was one of the documents for today's
Yeah.
meeting and it's also
Yeah.
in other places on the website.
And I think it would be part of our bid documents.
Yeah.
If we
Yeah,
put
we
it out to
definitely-
bid, we would use that.
It's a part of the document.
Mhm.
Does everyone agree that we're repairing sidewalks, we're not replacing sidewalks?
will you clarify that?
So Michael talked a minute ago about $5 million to replace all the sidewalks.
Yeah.
It would be extremely disruptive to Warren Street. I think we'd be worried. But it's way more expensive too.
Right.
You're literally jackhammering sidewalks. hauling them away,
Mhm.
reforming and pouring.
Which is what everyone does when they replace their own sidewalk, right?
No,
Not always, no, people have been just shaping them
I've
down.
seen people grind them down as well,
yeah,
you know, to
Okay.
make it smooth.
Do we? Is that within our purview that we determine?
yes.
It is,
Yeah, that can be the solution,
okay,
as long as it's compliant.
right. And the level of rigor in this Hyman Hayes is, it's intense. Is that the level of rigor we need to apply to areas that we start taking into consideration as part of our SID? Yes.
I think ultimately what it, the distances and that it takes care of, yes. They were extremely thorough because they were hired to do a report and they didn't want to leave any stone unturned,
Right,
and they were very good at it. And that's what consultants do. So I don't think we have to necessarily in the future ask for a consultant to report that's that detailed.
we can say, we know that this area of sidewalk is really poor. We want to make it, we want to, what is the word to use, not replace it,
Repair.
repair it.
Yeah.
And there's no. We
No,
don't
I
have
don't think
to,
we have to do the pre-report.
Okay.
Yeah,
necessarily.
there would have to,
We just have to adhere to the specs,
Right.
you know.
Can't have more than a quarter inch, can't have more than half inch, whatever they are.
Right.
Something right. The ramps need to be 1 in 12.
which is standard for any contractor to
Yeah.
understand that,
Yeah, and by then we'll have at least one relationship,
right?
right, with whoever wins the bid.
Okay, so I take it the rules of procedure for appeals, you know, all of that along with the assessments, something we can address as we go down the road.
yeah,
Which includes veterans and firefighters and.
Yeah.
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 But the way I read it, they have to apply, right?
Yeah.
We don't have to go out and find them.
yeah, so
We
eventually,
have to probably create a form that
Yeah.
they just fill out, I think.
Mhm.
And does the city replace? Do we replace our own sidewalks or do we hire someone to do that? Like, I know we're on the exemption list, but like the sidewalks,
That's
outside
just for
the-
dollars.
that's just for
we're
dollars,
just not paying ourselves.
right?
Yeah,
Okay, so it would be part of something we're putting out. It's not something that DPW is.
Right,
Right, okay,
right. Even if, this sidewalk just got done, but if this one out here it will be fixed,
yeah,
it's just this, we won't pay for it.
right, okay.
Yeah. The assessment will pay. for it.
program pays for it.
So establishing meeting frequency, I kind of think we can, maybe down the road, we do it once a month. I think we need to get to meet sooner than that,
Yeah, I agree.
right?
Yeah,
You said next week we're going to be seeing some responses to the bid
Mhm.
for the DRI
Yeah.
sidewalk.
But I don't think that, I think that's totally separate. That's just.
I understand, but will that not inform us better as to cost, et cetera?
Sure. Okay,
And that's coming in next week?
22nd, yeah.
And what day is that?
Monday.
Monday? Do we want to meet next week or wait another week? I would say next week.
yeah, I'm open to that for sure. I feel like there's a lot here.
Keep it
Yeah.
on Thursdays?
Yeah, I like Thursdays.
Yeah,
You
when
all
we
are-
could do no, I would suggest no earlier than Thursday, just for a meeting notice
Okay.
perspective. So the 25th is available, for 6 P.M.
Okay. So it's 7 o'clock. We can adjourn or we can pick up some of the conversations we glossed over.
The only thing I wanted to go back to was about the hiring, because if we decide we're going that way, does the mayor's office handle it for us? What do we have to do? That's what
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like, it'll be up to the city. If this board decides the best route is to hire a new employee, then that is the job of the city to go ahead and do that process. Yeah.
For the city, what do you think the advantages are to having a city employee versus someone else?
Well, I think the prospect of having that position also be the ADA coordinator is it would be a huge improvement. I think to the mayor's office generally and also for the community. I do think that having an employee means that that person is literally here and a part of City Hall and is not some other entity that is potentially and lives an hour away, and then it makes it a huge deal to have them come to meetings and everything. So
There's more turnover with these consultant companies.
Yeah, there's no continuity.
yeah,
Yeah.
And this is a big one.
yeah. The challenge will just be finding. I do think that the qualifications for this position are fairly unique.
Right.
For the area, so it may be a challenge to find the person who is willing to do this work at that salary.
Anyone internally would want to go up?
That I don't know.
I know Ithaca, did you post that? No. you
I didn't
use
post
the
it,
link.
no, but I
It's
can.
just a
I can
link,
share
so it
it.
was easy.
Yeah,
They wanted a bachelor's degree, they wanted it wasn't really an engineering degree, but they
Mhm.
wanted construction experience. No, I think really just need someone who's organized and thorough and sidewalks are not complicated engineering, it's not like.
But they're close to people's hearts because that's their.
Sure, that's what I mean,
Yeah.
like someone conscientious and someone, but I
But
don't
to your
know
point,
that
I think.
that level is
The project management aspect of this versus
more important.
a degree or even, experience in
that.
construction.
We have that experience in our town,
Yeah, exactly. And we're not gonna, we're gonna know who we hire.
yeah. So we decide that next week?
Yeah, I think we should think about what we would put in the set of criteria for qualifications. You know, I think it's good to start thinking about this, like, what are we really looking for? What kind of commitment do we want? If we're going to hire a city employee, we do want them in for this, to see this through. Otherwise, it's not worth it.
Yes,
I don't think.
That's right.
Yeah.
Would the mayor have any input based on the combination of like getting an ADA coordinator, someone he can work with on?
yeah, no, I think I haven't talked with him specifically about that idea, but I think he would agree with me.
He and I spoke about that, but I mean, just like, how much of an opinion would he have about who gets hired?
Oh,
In the
I see.
interview, would he do the,
Ultimately, yeah, he would be doing the interview.
He would take our opinions in confidence.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you could also the process could be that we're down to finalists and this board interviews the finalists. But I think ultimately it's the mayor's hire. In that case.
So is that something, do we want to start listing the qualifications specifically for the project manager? ADA is already taken care of. This would be, I guess, combined in some way
Yeah,
to.
I can share the job description that Ithaca recently posted as a way for us to start. Yeah,
Let's start there and we'll just talk about it next week.
That's great.
okay.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So,
second,
Okay,
thank you.
is that done? That's it?
That's it.
that's,
Any public comment?
Oh,
Well, we don't have to have public comment, but.
well, if there is, we'll be happy to take it.
But CO is Carol.
that's why you're the chairman, looking at the clock.
Well, I didn't know what time frame we had, but I was looking at the agenda as we were moving along. Okay,
Okay.
thank you, Tom.